Good
afternoon. May this day be a blessing for you. Dear online viewers, Mission Impossible. We have several blockbuster films with that name, Mission Impossible, with Tom Cruise. And this story is about a world on the brink of tragedy, and Agent Ethan is in a situation where no one can save the world except for him. Tom Cruise would always save the world. Mission Impossible for everyone was possible for him. Very few people know that Tom Cruise actually failed as a father and as a husband. To save the world in the movie is easier than to become a father who is a hero for their own child. To be a father or mother in 21st century is a challenge beyond our powers. We'll talk about raising children and how we can manage. And we welcome good, nice, romantic couple, Vasyl and Alyona Ostry. And we'll talk about bringing children up. These two people are experts, but here they're like mother and father. In our dinner table, they will put some grain of wisdom, but that's later. Now let's get to know them closer. Let's divide our broadcast into two stories. First, story of your childhood. I'm very interested to get to know your childhood world, to look at your parents and you and your particular worlds. And then we'll talk about you as father and mother. You have 4 beautiful daughters that at this time have not become their full potential. And Vasyl, you want to say they're still too young, they're too little yet to gain their full potential. So tell me about your childhood in one sentence. Alyona, you start. Real, bright, full of good memories, and without any worry. Wow, one sentence, too hard, but I'll try. Attention and care from special ladies in my life, and not just about my childhood. I was raised with my mother and my older sister, but this story is about today. I have a wife and 4 daughters, and our niece, Alyona's niece, lives with us. That's 6 girls. Sometimes my mother-in-law comes, and that's 7. And it happened once that my mother came along as well. So I'm amazed by women. We had 8 at one time. So for many people, for Alyona, childhood is about joy and no worries. So if you thought about all funny stories and put one at the top, what's the funniest story of your childhood? I thought about a story. We are children of Soviet Union, and our life was about same dressing, same things, same, for example, sports clothing that we had in the store. And when someone gave me a gift of jeans, blue jeans, they were too dark for me. And these jeans were too dark, and I wanted to make faded jeans. And I had this genius idea. Take a stone or a brick and scratch off the blueness from jeans. I did it. I was just destroying beautiful jeans. So what was the end of this story? That's funny story in your eyes, but not your mother. My mother got angry with me, but when we were getting married, mother called this story as the funniest from my childhood. Thank you, Vasyl. It's not a top story, but that's one I remember. I really loved different juice in childhood. They were sold in 200 milliliter cans, glass cans, and I loved tomato juice. Mother brought tomato juice, and I was expecting, because it was with metal lid, and I had to drink. But you need to put some salt in to add taste, and I added some salt. That's what I thought, but it was baking soda, and it started foaming up, pouring out. I did not understand, and I had this immediate reaction. So what do? I started drinking it. It's not tasty. I am all red in that tomato juice. As I look back, it was funny looking at me, but my reaction, it's pouring out, foaming out, and I had to do something. I had to drink it. Tomato Coca-Cola. If someone is listening, if children are listening today, they will definitely try it at home. Okay, your childhood. In addition to joy and no worries, any childhood leaves some impact on our lives. For example, this thumb is shorter by centimeter at my right hand. Why? Because one dark night, I was walking along the pit in our street that was dug for the water pipes. So I fell and I cut on a can, and it healed, but it's shorter. I have scars here. There are scars from our childhood, things that did not bring joy, but it was part of your childhood and it helped you form. If we are not talking about very negative things, I could describe my childhood as some kind of expectation. The thing is, my parents divorced when I was 4. And all my life, in childhood, I had expectation that they would remarry. Of course, these were some bias as a child. Nobody talked about God, or they talked very little. Like you would have this prayer, Our Father, or some other, and there were some prejudices. You had to see black car, then you make a wish and you wait for the white car, and then or someone in glasses. And I was making these desires for parents to come back together, and I was holding my fist until I saw someone in glasses or white car, because that was my wish. I remember being in the hospital. My father, mother, and grandmother came at the same time. Nobody had a cell phone at that time. They did not agree, but they both came at the same time. For me, at the hospital was paradise on earth. Almost my dreams came true, although later that was practical fulfillment, but that's another story. That was my expectation, for parents to come back together. A scar in my childhood is the death of my father. I was 10. He died. And over that time, 10 years of my life, but I thought, how poor are the children who do not have one of the parents. At the age of 10, I became that kind of child. My mother tried to compensate this loss. I had no need in anything. She worked at several jobs to provide for our lives. fully, but I was the only one like that in my class at the time of teenage years. That was very difficult to be half orphan. I'm not like everybody else. Half orphan, this word traumatized me and followed me all my childhood from the age of 10. If I understood you correctly, the loss of your father, for you, Vasyl, and for you, Alyona, was something very painful that left a scar in your life. I lost father when I was 2, and like in your story, Alyona, my mother tried to provide for both father and mother, but however great her mother is, she cannot compensate for what father could give. It gives hope, though. I look at you. You are great people, and you have succeeded despite the fact of lost father. You had great mothers who have carried the burden to raise children without a husband. Now, I give you right to evaluate your mothers from the standpoint of successful educators. You have a right to assess the role of your mother, how successful they were in your upbringing. What would be the grade you would give to your mother? 12 plus. My mother is my hero, my inspirer. How she could make great childhood for me by herself. I remember I asked her not to get to marry again. I had this set up in my childhood. I didn't want to have any other man in my life, just my father. And she responded. She said, "Yes, okay, I'll stay unmarried just like you asked me." We'll come back to that later. Vasyl, what will you say? Mama is my hero. If you ask whether we have superheroes in life, not just in comics, that's my mother. She is a fighter. She had many challenges in her life that she met, and no tests have broken her. She fought for me, whether I was right or wrong. She was standing strong like a rock for me until the end. I don't know how I can evaluate. That's beyond assessment. I'd like you to add some specific qualities to answer the question what she managed the best as a mother when we are talking about raising you as a son. As I look back from today, I think we had very close emotional connection. My heart was with her. She has never lost me. I had problems in my life, difficulties, but still she built very close emotional connection that allowed me to go through every test. How did she manage to bring you in so close? And how could she come into your life so closely? I'm not sure, but it's like living together. It's hard to separate. It's like upbringing. She did some special things. I'm not sure. We just lived together. We had some troubles in the family that we had to go through together. I saw how she responded to crisis, recession throughout the world, but we also had it in our family. But she never got discouraged. There was a terrible year for our family where 3 people died. My father, my uncle, my father's brother, and my great-grandmother, his grandmother. 3 people died. That was very difficult for me, the death of my father. particularly. And I remember my experiments with alcohol and drugs and some other evil things. I connected to attempt to deny this pain, deny the tragedy. It was so painful. 3 funerals over 1 year. All the tears. I remember this cemetery. Whether that was early spring or late winter, the snow is melting, everybody's crying. So painful. And I was looking for other ways to deny reality. My mother, who responded to all these challenges with her behavior, I saw her example. We lived together. It was not something particular. It was just everything when we lived together and we overcame together. Alyona, you managed the best assessment for your mother. And you're talking about very close emotional connection to her. How did she manage? What did she do best? How did she manage to build such close emotional connection to you? My mother tried to be my friend. She always responded to my childhood needs, my teenage youth needs. She gave me freedom, and that made us friends. Later, I told her, you have given too much freedom to me. You understand? Whatever difficulty we experienced, we always had a birthday. I was born on 30th of December. It's hard to celebrate it. Everyone prepares for the New Year's. But my mother always managed to make it a celebration, to buy something, to cook something, to bring my friends, even though they were busy with their families. For 1st of September, for school year, or for every celebration, I would have some new clothing, some gift, so that I would not feel different from my peers. Alyona, let me imagine that fathers, mothers who want to build close economic connection to their children, which is very important to transfer values, they use one way to give them more freedom to buy everything they ask for, to be Santa Claus every day, not just on Christmas. Is that true with your family? No, not really. We talked. When the child talks to you and you talk to them, you ask each other questions. Children get open. They ask so many questions when they grow. That's their growth. We need to answer their questions, not to avoid them. That will help build up their connections. I think, in addition to what we discussed, I'd like to give a comment. Pleasing children with gifts will not build emotional connection. If you replace gifts, if you replace connection with gifts, the gift is like a cherry on the cake. It should support your emotional connection, not replace it. You read 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, right? So, if you look at your mother's loves, and if you look at 5 Love Languages of Gary Chapman, what was the language of your mother, love language? For me, my mother loved with actions. She sees a challenge, she manages. That would be number 6. Maybe he did not notice that. No, okay. Practical help. Practical help is one of the practical love languages. Okay, Vasyl, good. Involvement. Practical resolutions of challenges right away. Alyona? I don't know if this language is described by Chapman, but my mother was always protector for me. She was always on my side in every situation, whether with teachers or wherever her child needed help, she would be on my side. Is there such love language? I want to think about my mother. Her love language to me really impacted my love language towards my wife. I love to hug. I would hug from morning to evening. I love to kiss my wife because my mother has spoken that language to me. I remember Sundays. I lived in family where God was discussed on Christmas and on Easter. We would not go to church on Sunday, and I was in the same bed with my mother, and she would hug me, she would battle me, she would kiss me. That was something amazing that formed me. Now, forgive my holy mothers, holy mothers of Alyona and Vasyl. I am forced to find some dark spots in your great images, but there are spots on the sun, so don't worry. What did they not manage well? These practically perfect mothers, did they have anything, in your opinion, were there some things that they could improve? It's a very difficult question. I don't know if I have a right to think about this right now. Let me explain. Love. Can it be considered as a minus? My mother believed me even when I lied. She was always on my side. Can I call it a fault? Because later I saw that this quality helped me not to break in my troubles, to move forward. I don't know. You know, there is a concept. It's not hyper care, that's different. Maybe blind love? But I don't want to call it as a fault. How about love that spoils? No, that's not spoiling love. When mother believes everything, like naivete, maybe. I don't know. I don't want to give a definition. Mother was not ready to agree that this perfect child could lie to such holy mother. Actually, when she found that out, she never left me. Possibly. Alyona? Just like I said, we had one discussion with my mother when we spoke about childhood punishment of some kind, and we agreed that she did not punish me enough. Maybe I asked my mother, you should have had less freedom for me. I could beg for anything and everything. It was something that built up our trusting relationship with her. But when I analyze back, and when I think about becoming a better mother, that was actually an art to give freedom. I really want to know, your loving and caring mothers, how did they discipline you? Tell me. I want to know. Did they spank you? My father actually never screamed or spanked. Yes, but he left when he was 4. The worst was still ahead and he just didn't manage. Yes, my mother would pick up a slipper and would spank me. But then, I don't remember whether I was 11 or 12. I caught her hand and I asked her not to do it anymore. She never did. My mother would raise her voice to be heard. Sometimes I would also be spanked, but my father would never spank. Like father of Vasyl. We lived together until 10. He had a art of sharing truth in jokes. He always would encourage us, me and my sister, through jokes. We close this page. Dear viewers, I wanted to look into the world of these kind people in the part of their biography that is called childhood. Why? Because now when they're grown up, when we are grown up, it's correct to look back and try to remember what was the best in our childhood and what did our parents manage best. Because maybe due to this life, they left impact, and this emotional closeness was mentioned many times. Both Vasyl and Alyona recognized that because mothers built this emotional closeness when they knew your world, emotional closeness was built through communication, time spent together. I think the biggest emotional closeness I had after mother was with my grandfather. He would take me fishing. I went gathering mushrooms, riding an old motorcycle called Minsk. And this time together is so important. Parents are so important. Time of communication when we can look inside the world of our children through questions. Children can lie, look closer into their eyes. Sometimes they tell things that are not true, and we need to spend time with them, thus building emotional closeness and asking questions. Okay, move to the second part. You're not son and daughter anymore. You are father and mother. Why do you need children? That's the first question I have. Why do you need children? Who is bringing whom up? Because that was the title of our broadcast. Who is raising the other one up? Children or parents? When we got married, before our wedding, we did not have much premarital counseling that is practiced now in our church or in other churches. But still, our pastor, Andrei Koninchuk, had several sessions with both of us. Then Andrei spoke to me, and his wife spoke to Alyona. I don't remember talking about children, number of children, and when we should give birth. Maybe we didn't raise those topics, or maybe I don't remember, or I thought things will work out somehow. So after we got married, I had an expectation, like with many couples. Why should we give birth now? Shall we get used to each other first to get more pleasure in life? That's how I lived. We had a dog. We always had someone in our family to care for, but Alyona, she's a very wise woman. Like other wise women, they can influence husbands. What did she do? Our friends had 2 children, and she said, let's help our friends. Let them go for a date. Let's spend 2 days and a night with those children. We did it once, and there are 2 children. So we needed food for those children. We need to clean them up, to walk with them, to catch them when they fall at night. Alyona initiated that. And I became a hostage. Great idea. These are friends. Let's help them. So I started practicing with somebody else's children, and I wanted to have some of my own. And then I discovered that was Alyona's strategy that worked, right? Actually, I love children from my own childhood. I was several years older than the children in our apartment building, so I was a great nanny for all the rest of the children. Parents knew me, children knew me, and even When I was a school child, my kindergarten teachers asked me to come in the afternoon and play with little children, so I always loved children around. I'd like to add, we have 4 children. We have enough time to go around them. You know what? Alyona, she works in the kindergarten. She has 12 more children. Children around her all her life. She has a very big heart. You know, I asked that question because now, as never before, in human history, people started admiring comfort and pleasure. And children do not associate with pleasure and comfort. I look at Grey Vasyl and I understand why you need children. Children come to us and we have better color in our head, but also hypertension, maybe diabetes. And when children come, we have less time for each other. Many cannot travel as a couple. Now they can only take children. Less money, less time, less sleep. So many challenges with children. Why would you have children? People love comfort. You are right. When we moved from Rivne to Kiev, we lived at Pozniki district. The first thing that was disappointing, those playgrounds for children were dirty and rusty. But places for walking dogs were very well set up. So people buy a dog or a cat, spend a couple $1,000s on them, and they care for someone. Why would they need children? That was first shock in Kiev for me. You know, I was fighting at some time with God's commandment to give birth to children. Lord, why? This commandment was announced in Eden, in the Garden of Eden, in the paradise of God. Why children? But when God looks with his heavenly eyes upon us humans, he works with parents, and he wants not to provide external comfort for us, but he cares who we are on the inside. He is a heavenly Father. He wants to raise certain qualities in us, and he gives us our children so that through our children he would bring us up better. So those who said that children give birth to parents are correct, but we'll come back to that. So when children were born, you discovered that you were not ready to something. What? You had strategy to train, Vasyl. When did you have the first baby? After marriage? 1 year. Actually, we celebrated 1 year with a 1 month baby. So Alyona's strategy worked, 100%, yes. So, what you were not ready for. The first thing we were not ready is to pregnancy. I already mentioned it someday. When we went to a doctor, when Alyona was pregnant, and he started making picture for us of dim future. He advised us to do abortion because otherwise our life would be very scary. We were not ready for that. That was the first pregnancy, first marriage, and so it was a challenge. We prayed together, our friends prayed for us. So that was number one, I think even before we had birth. And when our Sophia was born, I already had experience, great experience of being a nanny. I was spending time with my niece from my age of 13, but I was not her mother, just aunt. But when my child was born, and she's helpless, and I don't know what to do, how to help. I had many questions to God. Lord, you know that I had so much desire for children. Why the child is so helpless? Why I have to be everything for this baby for a certain part of my life? I need to become that child. I need help my girl's growth. Maybe you would disagree, but a mother, a wife, has privilege of understanding what it means to be sacrificial in love. What we sacrifice, you cannot understand. When Sophia confused day and night, what were you doing? You were sleeping very well, and I was playing with Sophia. She was 8 months old, and we had to survive until she was 8 months. I agree with you. That was a joke. Many family counselors, as they study the conflict, history, and even divorce of married couples, they realize that when the first child comes, the level of understanding and communication between husband and wife deteriorates. Conflicts increase, offenses increase, for whatever reason. So birth of Sophia and then second and third and fourth girl, how did that impact your relationships? Maybe because we got pregnant almost immediately and we gave birth almost immediately, this transition from being you and me to being us, if this transition happens in the first year, your family consultant, when this transition happens from you and I to we, is there a schedule? Actually, some people live in marriage for 20 years and they still have 2 eyes and not a single we. For us, that transition happened in year 1. Alyona got pregnant. She needed more attention. She needed more help. And my activities in my work, my ministry in the church, and with friends had to change rapidly. In fact, that facilitated this pregnancy, facilitated this transition. We had several misunderstandings, conflicts. When Alyona said, "You're different now, you need to think with different categories. You cannot think just about yourself. You cannot remain in the activities you've done before you got married." I don't know how many times we spoke on this topic, but transition happened very fast and Alyona helped me. We're not unique. That is a difficult period for many, and for us, the life was divided into before birth and after birth of our children. They have changed us a lot. It was so difficult, and there were moments when I thought I could manage only one child. We would not have possibility to have another one. I would not have enough love and care to forget about myself in some issues. But then the children grow. The biggest blessing of children is after they are born. Why them? Because lions share huge part is in seeing in your children reflection of the husband you married, of the man you dedicated your life to, the best, the closest, the most valuable. You see their qualities, their likeness in image and in behavior, and that's a miracle. And when you observe this miracle of God, you forget all those nights and everything. Okay, now you have opportunity to talk to the part of our online audience who do not have children yet, who are in expectation. There are husbands, there are wives, or boys, girls. So as you talk to future mothers, what can help them, like what would have helped you before you became mother? And Vasyl, you same to the man. I would like to give 2 suggestions, just like you asked. Before you have the baby will change everything. And I promised myself that I will tell everyone that life would change so much. Why would people not warn me how life changes? Now I speak about this at every baby shower. the child is helpless until maybe 2 or 3 years of age. Now, before the child is born, keep strengthening your inner person. Don't waste your precious time on some things that do not build you up as a personality. You know very well what you need to become stronger, to become more powerful in your thoughts, in your attitude to things. So direct your time, your effort to build up your internal personality. That's my first suggestion. And the second suggestion, if after the child is born, you think that your time together might impact your professional skills or some other parts of your life, that you would lose the context of life, as I thought, that is not true. The child grows up, and very naturally, you'll go back to all social processes. Today's motherhood is not that difficult. We have all opportunities to have children at our church events, for example, or anywhere. So, don't believe that child would limit you in some way. The other way around. Actually, you will learn how to love sacrificially. For a Christian, that is the greatest achievement, to understand the sacrificial love and to love in the same way. To support words of Alyona, she graduated Rivne University, bachelor with honors. And after the birth of second child, she became master and also with honors. So you can grow and develop. Now about boys. Boys, men, when your wife is pregnant, it's not just about physical and hormonal changes in her body. This is important time for your family life, together. Men are about activity, to provide for the family, to build up career. Pregnancy is a short period of time. At this time, caring for your wife, talking to the baby that is still not born, time for joint prayers, time spent together is so important. So focus your intention on the child you expect and on your wife. And no career, no work, no income, no friends should replace that maximum attention. Even no ministry will replace these special moments that you can give to your family, to your wife and your future baby. So you have 4 girls, 4 daughters. I have 3 boys. That's different. So what are most important qualities that you would like to raise in your daughters? To help the child, to direct her, to learn how to manage her needs, first with primary as food and clothing, and then meaning of life, how to find proper answers to her questions so that one day she would become complete spiritual person, loving your neighbor and loving your God. We need to help children understand how to become such persons. I'd like to add that I personally would like to raise responsibility in everything my children do. Whatever they do, they need to do it the best way. Not to be negligent in whatever they do, whether they sing or play an instrument, or they cook or they clean. They need to be conscious and responsible. That's number 1. Second is respect. Respect to people. That's very, very important, because we live in the world where you have a lot of mockery. And when they talk about the school, the kindergarten, they see this injustice. And it's easy to respond to offense with offense, to aggression with aggression. But to understand and forgive and to accept, That's much more difficult for us. And they look at our lives. And sometimes when we discuss our own mistakes, where I say I was 100% wrong, I had wrong reaction. You cannot do that. Okay, we came to this short question, how? Very short, but most difficult. When you look at a child as a field, a plot of land, where weeds grow much faster than good fruit. So my question is, how? Based on your experience, could you formulate 3, 4, 5 universal principles of upbringing? Maybe 10 commandments from father and mother. It doesn't have to be 10, but some things that you believe would work well in other families. First, universal is attention. Attention to the child. Alyona helps me with that. Sometimes often children come and tell me something. And whether I'm busy with a book or with a gadget, or I correspond, sometimes I'm doing work on my phone, I need texts and I write them on the phone. Child comes and she starts telling me, Father, and I'm saying, and Alyona says, stop. Look at the child, listen, put it away. And I'm thankful to God for Alyona that she can correct me and improve me at the right moment. And then I look into the child's eye, respond, and discuss. So attention is number one. Vasyl, small comment. It was discovery for me when children come to tell you, you have to go to the level of their eyesight. That meant for me, I had to kneel on one knee. That would demonstrate to children that I am attention, or bring them up to your arms. Correct. Second, mutual assistance. What that means? When my children see that I'm involved in their lives, they do music, they do sports, dancing, and when I participate in their competitions, when I travel with them, for us it would be 1 or 2 days if it's a festival, we are there together, we spend time. Not just me involved in their activities, but they're involved in my activities. In my profession, I speak at conferences often. I have meetings and I have travels to other cities. And I bring my children with me. They see what father does. During conferences, imagine 11-year-old child or 14-year-old daughter watches me preach or meet with people, and they participate. And for me, this is a great honor when my children want to do that. And when I ask, daughter, now I'll be teaching a lecture or I'll have a presentation. Can you pray for me during my presentation? And when she says, I will pray, or after the presentation she says, Father, I prayed for you. That's very valuable, mutual help. Thank you. When God started giving us our daughters, my friends, girls I've been friends with that I liked, I talked to their mother and I asked, tell me, how did you raise such a great daughter? And very often they would say, that's joint activity, joint work. I carry a bucket and she carries a smaller bucket. When I go weeding the garden, she is weeding next to me. So involvement is very important. So I ask my girls to help me with my work, and then I play with them, and that builds up our friendship. But then what I want, most of all, that our home would be a fortress for them, real fortress, and even if it turns into a shack, whatever they do, whether it's a workshop or hairdresser shop, let them do whatever they want, except it has to be their comfort and our comfort. Our home should be most pleasant for them. We need to cook together. We need to fix something together. That's it. Another thing I'd like to point out, that effective time with children. What I mean is, we can be in the same facility, but we can be far away mentally or emotionally. The most effective time for us that I have realized, as much as I'm busy and my children are busy, that's evening time. Time before sleep. When we go to sleep, I prepare my children to sleep. We need to talk. We need to pray. We need to discuss. That's most valuable time. Because in the evening, we want to relax. In the beginning of a new day, we want to see or to prepare or to study or to work. But for the evening, please choose this time for you most comfortable. Every family should choose, but I think the evening is the best. And be constant there. I'd like to thank our viewers. They're asking their questions online. My apologies, I will not be able to announce all the questions, but at least some of them are very interesting. For example, how do you protect each other from attacks of your children? Vasyl, let's begin with you. You look at Alyona as your defender. You are the defender. Did you have to defend mother of your children very often? From your daughter, very often. There are four of them. But not four of them keep saying mama all the time. Sofia is 14 and Vitalina is 11. But two little ones keep saying mama, mama. And when Alyona is resting, I am protecting mother. Don't touch mother. Let's get out of her room. I will help you. If necessary, I protect her sleep. Did children try to raise voice at their mother? Be angry, be mocking, revolting. Boys are different from girls, but still, very seldom that happens. And it's more related to some offense when child cannot keep anger or revolt inside, but that happens very seldom. We talk to each other. Why do you have this tone? Why is your response that way? And then the child explains the reason, and then we talk about the tone. Very seldom. Alyona, every child questions the authority of the father. At least once. How do you protect Vasyl in the eyes of your children? He is such a great father. I keep saying, this is a dream of every child. I wanted to have a father like that. He wins them over. I think they formed him into such gentle and kind. They don't subvert his authority. We have such saint in our broadcast. You can just gather myrrh from you and pour it in bottles. Well, they talk to him, they hug him, and he hugs them. We have a very important activity in our family. Kiss therapy. Kiss therapy. Parents take it as a lesson. When a child has no mood, a bad attitude, when we start kissing until the child starts laughing. And when you are tired, they start kissing. That's super. And that builds you up. The smallest child, Valeria, she's almost 5. And that differs her from all other girls. She's the youngest, a lot of attention to her. Sometimes she can say, Daddy, overall, you're not the most important person in our house. God is the most important person in our house. So, in crisis situation for her, That's a sort of revolt. What does fathers say? God is the most important, but he told me to take care of you, so... Okay, how do you protect your children when the child is offended in school regularly? Did we have situations like that? Okay, even if you didn't face it yourself, what would you advise? We had certain situations when there was some tension in the class between the children. And one of our daughters was part of that conflict. Yeah, maybe some form of a conflict. And I spoke to my daughter and I said, I'm your father, and I will defend you until the end. But this is a situation. You got into trouble. We have several options of solving it. First, I go to the teacher together with you, and we talk to the person with whom you have conflict. Second, I go to police and I make a complaint because what's happening could be considered as bullying or some other thing that should be investigated and maybe fined. I can talk to the parents and ask what's going on. I gave my response, and then the daughter said, Daddy, let me try to talk to that person myself. It would be step number one. If it doesn't work, then I would accept your help. We defined the strategy, how we would act. My daughter felt that she's protected, and things worked out after she talked. So, I think we need to recommend to discuss the problem with children and to discuss a roadmap step by step. If one thing does not work, then we'll try the other. There was continuation. Vasily wanted to see what kind of child that was, and we went to park to talk. But that's a different story we did. In your family, do you have taboo? Many acute questions are raised in early youth, in teenage years. Sets questions for boys, questions for girls, tattoos, short skirts, painting hair, photo in swimming suit. What questions do you have that are categorically denying your children? What do you forbid your children? As I think back to my upbringing with my mother, and she was not talking about principles and lectures, that was life. So I accepted her values and principles in life as we moved forward. Same thing here. Our children, in my opinion, they are very humble. Really humble. Sometimes they make me some reprimands about my ideas. They would insist on longer skirts. So maybe I did not raise these topics as a theme to tell them this is right and this is wrong. Yes, we just talk. So I would not give you some acute example, but if we discuss nuances, we talk. We discuss, they give their arguments, and we give our arguments, and we find a solution that would be acceptable to all of us. Alyona, another question about emotional burnout for the mother, or such terrible thing as post-birth depression. So, did you experience this burnout? I did not have burnout per se, but because one of my babies did not sleep at night for several months, I did not have full night's sleep more than for hours. Sometimes I even had hearing hallucinations. My young body needed rest. My child does not sleep at night, and I am not ready to manage. So what helped me? Friends. My faithful girlfriends. Not some theoretical advisors, but those who lived through that. Their assistance, their prayer, their helping hand to rock my cradle or to walk with my child outside. And I had several friends like that. They're faithful. They've been faithful all our lives, and until today, I ask their help when necessary. Alyona, at this most difficult period of time, you really needed to rest, right? To sleep full night, to stop hearing child screaming, and your friends helped you at that time. My mother and my girlfriends, yes. Okay, I'm sorry I cannot raise all the questions that my friends have raised, that our viewers have raised, but the last thing, I'd like to ask you to talk to today's fathers and mothers and future mothers and fathers. What would you say out of 10 commandments in the Old Testament? 8 begin with the phrase, do not. God the Father reveals His heart to people, and He tries to explain what it means to love Him and to love our neighbors. And in 8 cases out of 10, this love means not to do something. Alyona, Vasyl, just try and speak to the hearts of fathers and mothers with a request not to do something. What would you warn them against? I need to speak to men or women. Alyona, let's choose one each. I begin and you continue, okay? I begin, you conclude. Dear mothers, dear ladies, never compare your husband with other husbands, with other men. I want to understand how that impacts upbringing. Upbringing, if women compare their husbands with some other men, then children have a wrong attitude to the father. They have no respect. Stanislav? Alyona? I would invite you not to use your authority as a main educational tool. Authoritarianism will hurt. You cannot become someone superior to the child. You need to become a friend. You don't know, I know. I'm older. I've seen, that's what I said, that because, just because, you cannot put your children higher than husband or wife. Sometimes women put their children above husband. That should not happen. Husband and wife, father and mother, remain priority for your close relationships. That's what you mean? Yes. Do not put your children above husband or wife. Thank you. Do not forget that this moment will pass, no matter how difficult it is. Children will grow up and things will be easier. The best thing is ahead of you, don't forget. Don't put your career above your family. Don't put your career above the family. You cannot sacrifice your family to career, because you lose both career and the family. And we can think back to Tom Cruise, who is known throughout the world, and his riches have hundreds of millions, but he did not become a hero to his own daughter. Thank you. I think the last thing that I'd like to say is answer a simple question. Who do you want your child to become? What reflection? If you want the child to be your reflection, then you need to spend as much time with the child as possible. If you want them to become a reflection of somebody else, this age from 0 to 3, that's a foundational time. We know that almost everything is built up before the child becomes 5, and that's a suitcase that the child will carry with them throughout their life. Very few things can change after, and it will require a lot of surgery. So if you want fully developed child, developed in harmony, they need to be raised in kind attitude and relationship. Never transfer the education of your child to somebody else. That's your responsibility as father and mother. No Sunday school teacher, no pastor can do it for you. That's your responsibility. Thank you, Vasyl. That's it? That's it. These are the commandments, what to do and what not to do. Today, we tried to look into huge part of our mission to be parents, to be father and mother, something unique, unrepeatable, fully difficult, and extremely important. Every husband, every wife, every father and mother, we hope that you will become perfect, so that years from now we would look at our sons and daughters and we would rejoice looking at them walking God's truth, demonstrating virtues of loving God and loving people. Most difficult question, how can this be done? Vasyl and Alyona shared how they can manage it today and what was the best in success of their mothers and fathers. We talked about communication, emotional closeness with our children. When I think about this, I remember that the best father in the universe is our Heavenly Father. He made Himself accessible 24 hours a day. He gave us a gift of prayer. Through Jesus Christ, we can pray to God into heaven at any moment, at any place, in any emotional state. God made Himself accessible, and that means that earthly parents need to do maximum to be accessible to their children. God gave us His Word. He initiated communication, and then Jesus came to us. The Word became flesh and resided with us, full of grace and truth. And we need to initiate this special time spent with our children. We need to be attentive. We need to be bold and brave and wise to protect them before others, but also to protect the authority of each other in the eyes of our children. May God bless us to be good sons and daughters to the Heavenly Father. Blessings to you all.